Time now to go behind the scenes at the Hanover Theater with your host, Lisa Condon. Lisa, good morning.
Good morning, Hank. Pleasure to be here. What a week, right?
Oh, my gosh. We live about a year, it seems, every day now. It's not a 24-hour news cycle. It's about a 24-minute news cycle. There's always something popping, which is one great reason why we love being able to visit with you and talk about what is happening in the world of the Hanover Theater.
It is so true, and we love the opportunity to be here. A lot of people have been asking about, what does it mean with Dr. Fauci's announcement about, fall looking to be the time when we'll be able to have concerts and things will be, quote, back to normal again. So obviously people are asking us about that too. And just to be completely clear, we are planning, if all goes well, cautiously optimistic that those Broadway tours will be able to return to our main stage in the fall, just like we've talked about, Hank. It's not really any new information. And in fact, we're still in that holding pattern because in order for that to happen, which we are very ever hopeful that it will, the rest of the country has to be in order. The rest of the country has to be in order, and the Broadway tours need to be able to put together their routes and their tour schedules, and so it's not just about what's happening in Massachusetts, it's about what's happening in the entire Northeast as well as the other side of the country. So we are cautiously hopeful, as always, and remaining flexible. I think that we'll know a lot more as people are vaccinated and the spring rolls out, and I think that we'll have a much more definitive answer in the next 30 to 60 days. But, Hank, like everything else, everything goes up and down so quickly that we are remaining ever nimble.
Oh, absolutely. No, able to pivot at a moment's notice. Saying all of that, though, you do have some live shows that are scheduled and are coming up.
Well, we have taken the live performances with a live audience off of our schedule for the spring, but we do have a couple of live streams that we are doing with Presenting John Tobin, which is really cool. The first live streams in our BrickBox, we remember that the Poe doubleheader, we were able to do that as a live performance in the BrickBox. We did A Christmas Carol Reimagined with the filmed theatrical production and then the screenings. Now we're doing a live stream for John Tobin Presents, 2 different comedy nights, which seems really great. And he's been having, a lot of really great experience doing this. And John Tobin himself is a very interesting person. First of all, his name sounds familiar to all of us, I'm sure. He has been a force in the comedy scene since the early 90s. What's interesting about him is how he started out, really, because, believe it or not, he was elected to the District 6 to be a District 6 representative to Boston City Council in 2001, and he was reelected 4 times. And he stayed in the Boston City Council until he started working at Northeastern University in 2010 as the first VP of City and Community Affairs. So now he has John Tobin Presents, which is a live comedy production company that produces and operates shows in and around Boston at a lot of well-known clubs like the Comedy Scene, Laugh Boston, Nick's, and, of course, now the BrickBox. So that's pretty exciting.
That is.
And he is going to be calling in a few minutes to talk to us about the comedians that he has coming to do the live stream at the BrickBox.
I love that.
But I can say that the first show is going to be Saturday, January 23rd. And we're familiar, it's going to feature Christine Hurley, Corey Rodriguez, Tukey Kavanaugh, and Will Noonan. I recognize Christine Hurley out of that lineup. Hysterical woman. Any of those names ring bells to you, Hank?
No, this is going to be new for me, so I'm looking forward to it. I bet Ben knew every single one of them. He is very into the comedy scene.
Yeah, Ben probably does. Well, and then what's great for Ben is we have a nice date night for him, Sunday, February 14th, another live stream, so, he can prepare a romantic little setting and have a little comedy live stream and laugh the night away.
Very nice.
That will be fun. Yes.
Lisa, you guys, you're really taking care of everybody, and we appreciate it. That's very nice of you.
true. I'm sure John will talk more about the February 14th show. But the other thing that we're working on, which is also cool, is we're going to be able to offer our audience a subscription to Broadway HD, which, if you love Broadway, even if you love the soundtracks or even, the excuse me, the live productions, they have almost everything.
Behind the scenes at the Hanover Theater, let's get back to your host, Lisa Condit. Lisa.
Hey, Hank, and I'm excited that John's on the phone with us now. And welcome, John.
Hi, thanks a lot, Lisa. Thanks, Hank. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. So we've given a nice introduction of you, talking a little bit about your past and about the upcoming live streams that we're going to have at the BrickBox. I have to say, though, you do have a colorful past. What got you into comedy and presenting comedians, from city council to VP of Community Affairs to comedy producer?
I started. The first time I ever saw live comedy, I grew up. My parents allowed me to watch maybe shows that perhaps I shouldn't be watching when I was 10 years old. But listen to Steve Martin's record, Wild and Crazy Guy, 1977, and just loved that and the power of someone standing on stage and making thousands of strangers laugh. And watched all kinds of sitcoms with my father, MASH and The Gong Show and things like that. And so I just loved comedy. And I saw my first live comedy show at Nick's Comedy Stop in Boston, which is a legendary place that we actually run today, which is an honor. But I saw that when I was a junior in high school, and I'd never seen anything like it before. It was just an awesome thing, and I subsequently went back about 40 times. And then my dream, though, was to be on the radio. I always wanted to be on the radio, but they told me with my accent I wouldn't get a job outside of Dorchester. So I was working at Kiss 108, and Dick Doherty, who was the big comedian, Dick Doherty in The Majority in the 60s and 70s. My parents used to go see him when they were dating and first married, and he was the big happy hour person down the Cape. And he came on to be on Matty Siegel's show, and I opened the door for him because he was opening a new club, and I introduced myself to him and told him my parents loved him, and he said, "How would you like to work as a door person in my club?" And that's how I got my job. He had a little club in Boston called Light Ships, which was on a boat next to the Children's Museum. It was 100 seats, so I would take the money, seat people, and then eventually bring the comedians up on stage. Then along with the legends, of Boston comedy like Don Gavin and Steve Sweeney and Wendy Liebman, and just this whole confluence of the past generation and then the new upcoming generation. And I would have worked there for free. It was just an awesome experience. I've just met so many, and then as Dick opened up other clubs and ran those for him, and then stayed with the management group, and then eventually started the Boston Comedy Festival, co-founded that, and then get elected to the city council, and then just started off on my own, just booking clubs and running places, and eventually opened my own club in 2009, and took over Nick's Comedy Stop, and then the opportunity came to go to Laugh Boston in the Seaport and join with the owners of the Improv Asylum on Hanover Street in Boston, and have done a fair amount of work in Worcester. One of my first clubs I ever worked at was the old Aku Aku in Worcester, which is now the 99. And I have to wait for about 15 people to pass away before I can write the book about that place. So it was an awesome experience, and I used to drive the comedians out there, so you can imagine. And you guys get more snow than anybody than we do in Boston. So some of those rides back home with 2 hours each way, and just if I just press record on some of those conversations, we'd have platinum selling comedy albums. So I have a great affinity for the city of Worcester, and Timmy Murray, who I'm great friends with, and was with them early on for lieutenant governor when I was a city councilor, and now he's doing such a great job at the chamber. And he spent some time at Laugh Boston. He said, we need a place like this in Worcester, and that's what made us open up, at where we are in the grid. And then obviously have done work with Troy at the Hanover Theater over the years, bringing shows in there. And now there's just awesome opportunity to, co-promote some stuff at the JMAC is really great.
Well, we absolutely love working with you. And your story, it's an inspiration to people who are listening or people who just following your passion. And the fact is we all need laughter right now, right? And the fact that you're able to bring that to us is wonderful. So tell us a little bit about the lineup. We have 2 live streams coming up. I had told our listeners, one Saturday, January 23rd, and then we have another Valentine's live stream. But let's talk about the comedians. You know, I'm very familiar with Christine Hurley, and then you also have Corey Rodriguez, Tukey Kavanaugh, and Will Noonan. What made you put these 4 together, and tell us a little bit about what audiences might be able to expect?
Well, I think it's really important more than ever. We've always sort of prided ourselves on this. I grew up in Boston, and it's just the way it was. It was just mostly, voices, just of white male voices, speaking. There were opportunities for people in Boston, for comedy. You almost had if you were, a person of color or, a female performer, you almost had to leave to come back home again. You know what I'm saying? And it was just sort of, so there's so many cases of that. And I think, I really got a sense of what things were about when I went to the Colonial Theater years ago. I was invited to be a guest. John Leguizamo did a show at the Colonial Theater.
Oh, yeah.
And there were 1,500 people in Boston. There were 1,500 people there. And for the first time, I'm a lifelong Bostonian. For the first time in Boston, I was the distinct minority in the crowd. And, at one point during the show, it was a one-person show, which was just brilliant. I forget the name of it, but he was just awesome. And, where are my Puerto Ricans at? Where are my Dominicans at? Where are my Colombians at? And just large groups of people, cheering in the crowd. I mean, I've never been witness to something like this in Boston. But it really gave me the sense moving forward, as a producer of comedy shows, that there are so many different voices that need to be heard from. And that if you put the shows together, people will come out and see them. And so, we've done shows at Laugh Boston with Russian comedians, with Chinese comedians, with Muslim comedians, all doing stuff in their native tongue. And people come from all over the place to come see them. And listen, I don't speak any of those languages, but I know the language of laughter. And when you get 300 people who I don't understand the words coming up, but they're being entertained, that warms your heart and it makes you feel good about what you're doing. So I think we've always try and bring that kind of focus to our shows, and have a mixed group of voices from different points of view, which I think is just and you don't always have to agree with a comic. I always say the best comics. There are a lot of great comedians who they don't exactly care if you agree with them or not. They just want to make you laugh. And sometimes you can actually laugh. You can actually laugh at somebody who has a different point of view of you. I know that seems like a foreign concept, but it is true. So we like to. With this show with Christine is just, she came on the scene in 2005, which, and is just, she's our most requested comedian by far.
Wow.
She
Good for her.
She has 5 kids. She and her husband Jimmy. Jimmy just retired as a lieutenant in the Randolph Fire Department, and he is a great fodder for all of her jokes. And he's awesome. They're a great family and great couple. And so Christine, she entered a Funniest Moms contest for Nickelodeon at Night because all her friends said you should be on stage, and she went and did it, and she won the contest. And she's just been taken places by storm ever since, and I love working with her. Corey Rodriguez is a kid from Milton, Mass, who has been at it for a long time and just grinds away. Does a lot of cruise ships. I just love working with them, and just love his point of view, his observational comedy. Tukey Kavanaugh is rather new. She's a comedian plus an actress. She's in a new film called The Salesman, starring a bunch of Boston comedians. And we're actually going to be representing Tukey in a production company that's going to present other voices from Boston, and from the region that have not necessarily been presented before on film.
Cool.
We're excited about that. And then Will Noonan's not only one of my favorite comedians, but one of my favorite people on earth. I've known him, been working with him for about 15 years. Probably the hardest working comedian I know. Constantly writing, constantly developing, trying new things. Was early on in the podcast game. people will recognize him. He's actually the New England voice and face of Honda. We Honda. So that's Will Noonan, and he's been doing those commercials for 3 or 4 years, which is great. He gets recognized a lot now as the Honda guy. But I think with each of them, the best is yet to come. And so, we prefer to be doing these shows with crowds, and we were doing shows, as you know, in Worcester this past summer, 50 people at a time on the tents, and we had some of the biggest comedians from New York driving up to do shows at 3, 5, 7, and 9 o'clock in front of 50 people at a time. These voices, if we can't have people there, then it's really incumbent upon us to present shows virtually, to provide, like you said earlier, people with some laughter. They need it more than ever. But also, I think it's really important, during the pandemic, certainly during the issues that are going on in our country right now around racial justice and equity in our government. We can't. To me, comedians are the biggest truth tellers there are. They question the absurd, the status quo. They question governments. They're smart. Don't let any comedian let you tell you they're dumb. There's no dumb comedians that are successful. They're very smart and intelligent. They have a point of view, and I think during all the crises that exist right now, I think we need their voices more than ever. That's the shame of it all. Their voices need to be, and any mechanism we have to present them, we need to be doing so. And so I'm just so delighted that we're able to partner up with the Hanover Theater and Troy and his team and you, Lisa, and to present these shows virtually in the hopes that this is just the appetizer for live shows of the JMAC with crowds.
Well, we are thrilled, and you raised so many key points for us because we really are dedicated, especially right now, to opening conversations. And you're right. Getting people to laugh so that they start to examine what's actually being said is the best way for us to, one of the best ways anyway, for us to start talking to each other. Theatrical productions, comedy, music, it's about the performing arts and really getting people together and seeing the similarities as well as being able to laugh at some of the differences. So I am so thrilled that you are bringing these comedians to us. Just, we only have a few minutes left, so I don't want to leave our Valentine lineup in the dust. So tell us a little bit about the February 14th lineup.
Yeah, that's February 14th, which is obviously Valentine's Day, and the next day is a holiday. Keep that in mind. So Sam Mike is relatively new. Well, he's been doing it for 6-7 years. It's funny, you call people newcomers who've been doing things for 7 years, but compared to some other people in the business, and he's established himself very well, hard worker, gone out there and created his own mics and get up on stage and always working. And he's a delightful voice to be up on stage. And Kathy Farris, you said America's Funniest Mom, great mom of a couple of kids, lives in Medfield with her husband, and was a real big fan of comedy before she got into comedy, going to the clubs and things like that. And I think, like some folks, stood at the back of clubs and said, you know what, I'm going to take a shot at that. It doesn't always work, but it's worked for Kathy, very, very well. And then last but certainly not least is Worcester's own Jimmy Cash, who's actually a custodian in the Worcester public school system, and is just awesome. And if you go on Jimmy Cash's social media, and you'll see a lot of his video clips that are just absolutely hysterical. That combine comedy with his janitorial duties, and but on stage and live, he is just awesome. He has a very endearing personality. He is Central Mass and Worcester through and through, but it does transcend to other crowds, other places, and I had him open up for Bill Burr for us a couple of years ago at Laugh Boston, and it was just awesome to see him introduce one of the Boston's most famous comedians, and certainly one of the world's most successful comedians, and Jimmy's put himself in that position by just always working hard. And so we're really excited to present that show as well. And like you said, I think some people walk out of comedy shows, and sometimes it might be not a particularly great experience. They say, "I'll never do that again." But I would like to remind people that they're not the same 4 people in every comedy show. There are actually a lot of different voices out there, and so we like to keep it fresh and rotate it. And certainly, we have a wealth of talent in Worcester and Central Mass and throughout the state of Massachusetts that we presented at all of our clubs in normal times throughout Massachusetts and Connecticut, and we're delighted to present these shows.
Absolutely, and we, of course, are delighted to have them. So if people want more information, there are 3 different places where I'm going to direct you. Of course, the Hanover Theater, spelled RE.org, our first 2 upcoming shows in our event listing. You can also go to the JMACWorcester.org website, and you will see it there. And then I definitely want you to check out John Tobin's website, johntobinpresents.com. You'll find out more information about John, his comedians, other shows that you are doing in the area. And we are going to be laughing the night away from the safety of our own homes, this January and February. Anything else you want to say to our listeners before we have to say goodbye for this week, John?
No, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Hank. I just one other thing. I mean, I know people are encouraging, during the pandemic to support restaurants, and certainly with takeout and things like that, and that's critical. And a lot of our fans and our partners are restaurant owners and workers in these restaurants, so it's critical we do that. I think it's really important too. We support our comedians, at least virtually. Just understand that comedians, this is their only line of income for most of them, and they're depending on these shows, these virtual shows. So to the extent you can, you'll be entertained. I can assure you of that. But you're also putting some money into pockets of the comedians, and so they can help with their expenses and their families as well. It's critical that we help them.
Oh, thank you so much, and we couldn't agree more. So take care, stay safe, be well. We'll be looking forward to seeing your comedians on Saturday, January 23rd and Sunday, February 14th in live streams, comedy nights at the BrickBox. You've heard it here on Behind the Scenes with the Hanover Theater. Again, John, be well. Thank you. To our listeners, thank you. Everybody be safe, and we'll talk to you next week.